Wade's hands were shaking as he read my resignation letter. The paper rattled against his desk like autumn leaves in the wind. "You can't be serious, Roger." After 25 years, his voice cracked on the last word. I watched his face drain of color when he got to the part about Section 7C. The retention clause he'd signed 3 years ago and completely forgotten about. The clause that was about to cost his company $360,000. "Dead serious," I said, keeping my voice level. "And thanks for the payout. The name's Roger Caldwell, by the way. 49 years old. And I just handed my walking papers to the man who thought he could screw over a guy with 25 years of manufacturing experience and 6 years Army engineering under his belt. Wade Phillips was about to learn that quiet professionals don't stay quiet forever. See, guys like Wade count on your loyalty, your dedication, your willingness to keep your head down and get the job done. They never prepare for the moment when the steady hand finally lets go. And they sure as hell never read the fine print on contracts they sign during their desperate moments. Let me back up a bit. This whole mess didn't start with Wade's betrayal last week. It started way back when I joined Precision Manufacturing Corp. Fresh out of the Army. I wasn't looking for glory or corner offices. I just wanted to use what I'd learned about systems and safety to build something that lasted. "You know what I like about you?" Caldwell, my first supervisor, had said during the interview. "You don't need a spotlight to get work done." That was true then, and it's still true now. While other guys were playing politics and posting on LinkedIn about synergy and paradigm shifts, I was the one actually making things work. When our biggest client, Miller Construction, hit a snag with their equipment orders in Q2, I was the guy who figured out why our 50-year-old production line couldn't keep up with modern demand. I remember calling Helen that Friday night around 9 p.m., "Honey, I'm going to be late. This Miller situation's turning into a real mess." "How late?" she asked. I could hear the tiredness in her voice. The school district had been making noises about budget cuts, and she was worried about her teaching position. "Maybe all weekend, but if I don't fix this, we're looking at an $800,000 penalty and probably some layoffs." She didn't complain, never did. Just said, "Do what you need to do, honey." So I did. Spent Saturday and Sunday in an empty factory rebuilding workflow protocols while everyone else was at their kids' baseball games or barbecues. Fixed the whole thing by Monday morning. When Miller demanded a 30% efficiency improvement on our production capacity 6 months later, I found ways to modernize operations that saved the company $180,000 annually without cutting a single job. They started calling me the problem solver because nothing stayed broken when I touched it. And I didn't mind the nickname. I liked the steady work, liked knowing I could prevent disasters before they happened. Helen was dealing with potential layoffs at school, and our son Jason was looking at colleges that cost more than my first house. Stability mattered more than recognition. "Dad, State's engineering program is really expensive," Jason had said over dinner one night, sliding the acceptance brochure across the table with the tuition numbers highlighted. "Don't worry about that," I told him, cutting into my meatloaf. "You focus on keeping those football grades up and that scholarship potential. I'll handle the money part." Helen squeezed my hand under the table. She knew what that meant. More late nights, more emergency projects, more proving I was worth the salary that covered her job uncertainty and his future. But here's what happens when you're too good at solving problems quietly. The same people who used to say Caldwell saved our necks start saying Caldwell just handles the operations stuff. The ones who used to pull you into emergency planning meetings start sending you meeting notes afterward like you're some kind of secretary. Wade wasn't always like that. When he was just a department head, he'd stop by my station and say things like, "I don't know how you keep this whole place running smooth, but thank God you do." Just good organization, I'd tell him. What I didn't mention was the Army habit of documenting everything. Every decision, every approval, every promise. In the military, if it's not written down with signatures and dates, it didn't happen. Then came Wade's promotion to VP operations and everything started changing. The gratitude turned into expectation. Every quarter brought more demands and fewer thank yous. He'd swing by my workstation and bark orders, like, "Miller needs those efficiency reports revised by 6 tonight." No greeting, no please. No acknowledgement that I'd already put in a 12-hour day. I didn't complain. Army taught me to keep detailed logs of everything, and corporate America was no different. So that's what I did. Every project milestone, every deadline I hit, every crisis I prevented, not for revenge, at least not at first. Just good operational practice. "You're building quite a file there," Helen had noticed one evening, watching me organize project documentation at the kitchen table while Jason did homework. 25 years of experience, I said, sliding reports into labeled folders. Gotta keep track of it all. You think they'll try to screw you over? I looked up from my papers. Honey, in corporate America, it's not if, it's when. The only question is whether you see it coming, she nodded. She'd seen enough of my coworkers get thrown under the bus over the years to know I wasn't being paranoid. Then came the big one, the Miller Construction Modernization Project. 18 months of work, complete production line overhaul, and a client who'd fired the last 2 contractors for failing to meet their standards. Everyone in the company said it was career suicide to take point on it. Caldwell, you sure about this one? Wade had asked in the project assignment meeting, leaning back in his chair. It's a real bear. High visibility, high risk. Miller doesn't mess around. I'll take it, I said without hesitation. The other department heads exchanged glances. Tony Sullivan from HR actually whistled low under his breath. Better you than me, Roger, but I wasn't worried. See, the Army teaches you something corporate America forgets. Preparation beats panic every time. You document everything, plan for contingencies, and execute with precision. Do that right, and the high-risk projects become your biggest wins. 18 months later, I was sitting in Wade's office with the Miller completion report spread across his desk. On schedule, under budget, by $18,000, first zero-incident safety rating in company history. The kind of numbers that make executives smile in board meetings and clients renew contracts without hesitation. Outstanding work, Roger. Really outstanding, Wade said, flipping through the summary pages with what looked like genuine appreciation. His handshake was firm, and for a moment his eyes met mine with something that resembled respect. We'll talk about that regional operations director track real soon. Sounds good, I said. But even as I shook his hand, something in his tone felt rehearsed, like he was reading lines from a corporate script he didn't quite believe. See, by then, I'd learned to read the signs. 25 years in corporate America teaches you that when promises start getting vague, you better start watching your back. Specific timelines become soon. Definite commitments become, we'll see how things develop. I walked out of his office and called Helen from my truck in the parking lot. How'd it go? She asked. I could hear dishes clinking in the background, probably getting dinner ready. Project's officially done. Wade says promotion talks are coming. That's wonderful, honey. Jason will be so excited about state. The football coach called again yesterday about his scholarship potential. Yeah, I said, staring at the factory smokestacks in the distance. We'll see what happens. The thing is, I already suspected better, because by then, I'd learned the unwritten rule of corporate America. If they think you'll stay no matter what, they'll give you exactly that. Nothing. 3 weeks went by without a word. No promotion conversation, no follow-up meeting. Wade would nod when he passed my workstation, but he wasn't stopping to chat about my future anymore. When I tried to schedule time to discuss my career track, his assistant kept saying he was tied up with strategic planning sessions. Strategic planning. That's corporate speak for we're figuring out how to handle you without it looking obvious. Then came the morning that changed everything. I was getting my usual coffee from the break room when Tony Sullivan from HR walked up with that careful smile people use. When they're about to deliver news they know you won't like. Congrats on your new boss, I guess, he said, stirring cream into his cup. I nearly choked on my first sip. New boss? He tilted his head like a confused dog. Oh, Wade didn't tell you. They announced Brady Martinez as the new regional operations director this morning. Thought you'd have heard by now. Brady Martinez. I set my coffee cup down hard enough that some sloshed onto the counter. 6 months ago, this guy was some hotshot MBA consultant who'd shown up with PowerPoint slides about operational optimization and a habit of explaining my own systems back to me like I was fresh out of trade school. You okay, Roger? Tony asked, genuinely concerned. Yeah, I lied, wiping up the spilled coffee. Just surprised, that's all. I walked back to my workstation feeling like I was heading to my own execution. Pulled up the company announcement on my computer screen. There it was in corporate black and white, excited to welcome Brady Martinez as Regional Operations Director. Brady brings fresh perspective and innovative thinking to our operational strategy. Fresh perspective, innovative thinking, that's code for we hired someone younger who went to the right school and plays golf with the right people. Brady was the guy who'd called our lean manufacturing protocols legacy processes in budget meetings. Who'd asked me to explain basic OSHA safety requirements 3 different times because he couldn't wrap his head around how workplace compliance actually worked. who cut out of critical planning sessions early because he had strategic client calls that were really just networking lunches with other MBA types. My phone buzzed. Text from Helen. How's your day going? Jason got another letter from State about enrollment deadlines. I stared at that message for a long time. How was my day going? Well, let's see. The guy I'd spent 6 months patiently training on manufacturing basics just got handed the promotion I'd earned. The position that would have bumped my salary enough to cover Jason's tuition without stress. The title that would have given us breathing room when my dad's assisted living costs started hitting our budget harder. I texted back. Interesting developments at work. Talk tonight. Wade didn't have the guts to call me directly or schedule a proper meeting. He just showed up at my workstation 2 days later with a paper coffee cup and a smile that looked like it was held on with thumbtacks. Hey, don't take this Brady thing personally, he started, not even bothering with a greeting. This wasn't about you or your capabilities. It's about optics. Brady's got that outside consultant experience that makes the board feel confident about our strategic direction. I looked at that coffee cup in his hands like it might explode. Did they review the Miller numbers when they made this decision? Sure. Fantastic work on that project. He waved it off like I'd asked about the weather forecast. But this decision was already in motion before your completion. These executive moves happen fast in today's competitive market. Already in motion. While I was putting in 60-hour weeks for 18 months, documenting every safety protocol and efficiency improvement, they were already planning to hand my reward to someone else. The promotion had never been real. I'd been the useful fool who did the hard work while they lined up their golden boy for the glory. I see, I said. Just those 2 words, but something in my tone must have registered because Wade shifted his weight from foot to foot. Look, Roger, there might be other advancement opportunities opening up. Senior director positions. We just need to see how the next quarter's budget cycle develops. More promises, more vague timelines, more corporate language designed to keep me hoping while they figured out their next chess move. I appreciate that information, I told him, but what I was really thinking was something my old Army platoon sergeant used to say, fool me once, that's on you. Fool me twice, and I'm not the soldier you thought I was. That night at dinner, I finally told Helen and Jason what had happened. They gave your promotion to someone else, Helen asked, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. After everything you accomplished on that project? Yep. Guy named Brady Martinez. MBA consultant they brought in 6 months ago to assess our operational efficiency. Helen set down her fork entirely. What's his actual experience with manufacturing operations? None. He asked me what PPE standards meant during his 2nd week here. You're kidding me. Nope. But he's got an MBA from some prestigious school and apparently plays golf with Wade every Thursday. Jason looked up from his homework spread across the kitchen table. Does this mean State's going to be a problem financially? Coach Martinez said I need to make my commitment decision soon. Helen and I exchanged glances across the table, the same look we'd shared dozens of times over the years when money got tight or job security felt uncertain. We'll figure it out, I said, reaching over to ruffle his hair. Don't worry about the financial part. That's my job. But the truth was, I was worried about more than just money. I was worried about what this betrayal meant for the next 15 years of my career. If they could screw me over this blatantly after the Miller success, what would happen when I hit 55 or 60? Would I just become the old-timer they kept around to train their next batch of MBA Golden Boys? That night, I couldn't sleep. Helen was breathing softly next to me, and I was staring at the ceiling, thinking about respect. Not the fake corporate respect that comes with meaningless titles and meeting invitations. Real respect. The kind you earn by being competent and reliable and delivering results when everything's on the line. Wade had stolen that from me. Not just the promotion or the money, the respect. He'd made it clear that 25 years of proven experience meant less than 6 months of golf games and business school networking. Around 2 a.m., I got up and went to my home office. Time to dig out that contract I'd signed 3 years ago. The one with the retention clause they'd insisted on when Apex Industries tried to poach me with a 35% raise offer. Time to see if Wade had read the fine print as carefully as he should have. I sat there in my home office at 2 a.m., reading that contract like it was a battle plan. The house was dead quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs and the occasional car passing on the street outside. And there it was, Buried on page 7 in section 7C, the clause that was about to turn Wade's world upside down. In lieu of advancement to promised position, employee may elect separation with compensation equivalent to promoted role, including accelerated bonus structure, extended benefits coverage, and early retirement bridge calculation. Wade's signature sat right there at the bottom, black ink on white paper. Clear as daylight, dated exactly 3 years ago when Apex Industries had tried to steal me away with that massive raise offer. I remembered that negotiation like it was yesterday. Wade had been sweating bullets about losing me to the competition. "Roger, you're absolutely irreplaceable here," he'd said, loosening his tie in that stuffy conference room. "Whatever they're offering, we'll not only match it, we'll beat it. Plus, this comprehensive retention package to prove we're serious about your long-term future with this company." I'd read every single word of that contract before signing it. Old Army habit drilled into me by sergeants who'd seen too many soldiers get screwed by fine print. Never sign anything you don't completely understand, and always assume the other party knows exactly what they're agreeing to. But I'd figured it was just standard legal protection language, something that would never actually be needed because, honestly, who breaks promises to their most reliable employees? Turns out Wade should have been just as careful about reading what he was signing. I fired up my laptop and started searching through 3 years of email archives. Found the thread from 8 months ago when I'd first asked about the regional operations director position opening up. Wade's response was sitting right there in my inbox. "After Miller project completion, you're the obvious choice for advancement to the next level." Another email from 5 months back when budget planning was happening. "Board's completely aligned on your advancement track, just waiting for formal budget approval on the new senior positions." And the real kicker, sent just 2 days after I'd submitted the Miller final report. "Finish strong on this project, and that regional director role has your name on it. Promises, written promises with digital timestamps and electronic signatures that any lawyer would love to get their hands on." I leaned back in my desk chair and looked out the window at our backyard. The moon was reflecting off the small pond Helen had insisted we install when we bought this house 12 years ago. "It'll be peaceful," she'd said. "Somewhere you can think when work gets stressful." She'd been right about that. This was exactly the kind of thinking I needed to do. That's when I knew what had to happen next. Not because I was angry, though I certainly was. Not because I wanted revenge, though that would be satisfying. But because it was the correct tactical response to a contract violation. Wade had made a strategic error, and there were documented consequences for that kind of mistake. He just didn't know it yet. The next morning at breakfast, Helen could tell something had shifted in my demeanor overnight. "You seem different today," she said, pouring coffee into my favorite mug. "More focused somehow, less worried." Had a productive night thinking through our options, I told her, buttering my toast. "Remember that retention contract they insisted I signed 3 years ago? The one with all the complex legal language, the one when that other company tried to hire you away. That's the one." Turns out Wade should have read it more carefully before putting his signature on it. She raised an eyebrow and set the coffee pot down. "What exactly did you find?" "An exit clause that works in our favor. If they promise a specific promotion in writing and then fail to deliver, I can walk away with full compensation equivalent to that promoted position." Helen nearly dropped her coffee cup. "Are you completely serious right now?" "Dead serious. Wade signed it himself, and I've got 3 years of emails where he promised me that exact promotion. What does this mean for us financially? Be specific." I'd already run the numbers twice before coming downstairs, about $360,000 total. "Covers Jason's state tuition completely, handles your job security concerns if the district cuts more positions, plus gives us a bridge to my Army pension benefits." For the first time in months, Helen smiled like she actually meant it instead of just trying to stay positive. "When do you make this happen?" "Monday morning. Give me the weekend to get all my documentation organized properly." Jason wandered into the kitchen right then, backpack already slung over his shoulder for Saturday morning football practice. "Make what happened Monday morning?" he asked, grabbing an apple from the bowl. Helen and I looked at each other across the kitchen table. We'd gotten pretty good at these silent conversations over the years. "Your dad's making some significant career changes," she said carefully. "Good changes that'll help with college costs." I reached over and squeezed his shoulder. "The best kind of changes, kiddo. Stop worrying about state's tuition. I've got that problem completely solved now." That weekend, I approached my file organization like I was preparing for the most important military inspection of my career. Every project milestone from the past 3 years. Every email exchange with Wade about promotions and advancement. Every document bearing his digital signature. I organized it all into clearly labeled folders on my computer and printed backup copies of everything important: Miller Project completion records, promotion promise email threads, contract violation documentation, supporting evidence for timeline verification. Sunday night, I sat down to write the resignation letter. Not some emotional rant about betrayal and broken promises. Just clean, professional corporate language that would make any HR department nervous. Effective immediately, I'm resigning my position and activating the separation clause outlined in Section 7C of my retention agreement dated 3 years ago. All vacation time payout requested as per company policy. Thank you for the opportunities provided during my tenure. Wishing continued success to the organization. No anger, no accusations, no threats. Just documented facts that would send Wade and his legal team scrambling to figure out exactly how much this was going to cost them. Monday morning, I was standing outside Wade's office at exactly 8:15 a.m. while he stirred sugar into his coffee and tried to wake up from what was probably a relaxing weekend of golf and barbecues. His hair was still messy from sleep, and he had that Monday morning expression of someone who really wished he was anywhere else besides the office. "Roger, hey there," he said without really looking up from his coffee preparation. "What can I do for you this fine morning?" I handed him the sealed envelope containing my resignation and contract documentation. "Thanks for all the opportunities over the years, Wade. Wishing you nothing but continued success." He squinted at the envelope like it might contain something dangerous. "What exactly is this, Roger?" "Just read it through carefully," I said, keeping my voice level and professional. "Take your time." I watched his face change as he worked through the letter. First, mild confusion, like he was trying to process unexpected information. Then something that looked a lot like panic as the financial implications started sinking in. The slow dawning realization that he'd seriously misjudged the quiet guy who never made waves or caused problems. "You're actually serious about this?" His voice cracked slightly. "You're really quitting after 25 years, effective immediately, as stated in the letter." He shot up from his chair fast enough to knock over his coffee cup, sending brown liquid spreading across his desk calendar. Hold on, Wade said, frantically dabbing at the spilled coffee with tissues. "We absolutely need to talk about this properly. There might be other advancement opportunities opening up soon. The board's been discussing expanding all the director-level roles." "No thanks," I said calmly. "I've got everything I need right there in writing. Roger, come on. Let's be reasonable about this." His voice had that desperate edge people get when they realize they've made a costly mistake. "We can definitely work something out. What's this really about? The Brady promotion? Look, that was just corporate politics. You know how these executive decisions work." "I know exactly how they work," I said. "That's precisely why I'm walking away." He was starting to sweat now despite the air conditioning. "Can we at least discuss a proper transition period? The Miller client specifically requested you for the next phase of their expansion. They're expecting operational continuity. All project documentation is current in the shared drive system. Transition notes are completely up to date. Contact lists and protocols are all properly filed. But Roger, you are the Miller relationship. Without your direct involvement, you should have considered that before giving my earned promotion to a consultant who can't tell a safety protocol from a lunch menu." That comment hit its target. Wade's face shifted from pale worry to embarrassed red. "Look, mistakes may have been made in the communication process, but walking away isn't the solution here. We can absolutely fix this situation." "It's already fixed," I said, turning toward his office door. "Everything you need to know is in that letter, Roger. Wait." Wade called after me with real panic in his voice. "We need to discuss this through proper channels. Let me call HR immediately. Let me get the board involved. We can make this right." I stopped at his doorway and looked back one final time. "Wade, you had 18 months to make it right. Your time's up." Walking past the administrative area, I saw Tony Sullivan from HR practically sprinting toward Wade's office. Smart man. He'd probably already figured out this was going to be expensive. By the time I reached my workstation to pack up my personal items, word was spreading through the facility like wildfire. My team supervisor was hovering nearby like I'd been diagnosed with something terminal. "Are you feeling okay today?" she whispered, glancing around nervously. "Is everything all right?" "Never been better," I said, shutting down my computer and unplugging my personal phone charger, just making some overdue career changes. I packed deliberately, letting them all feel the weight of the silence. Around 10:30, an urgent meeting invitation popped up in my email. Critical resignation discussion. All parties required. I declined it without even opening the details and finished clearing out my desk drawers. By 11 a.m., I was walking to my truck in the parking lot. Wade had already left 6 missed calls on my personal phone. Funny how corporate urgency works. Used to take him a full week to respond to my project status updates. Now suddenly he couldn't survive a Monday morning without immediate access to me. I didn't answer because our conversation was already finished. The paperwork phase was just getting started. The emergency damage control meeting happened that afternoon. I wasn't invited, obviously, but Carl Peterson from the finance department called me that evening with a complete breakdown of what had happened. They pulled every single document with your name on it, he said, speaking quietly like he was worried about being overheard. Wade was sweating through his shirt. The CFO kept asking why nobody had flagged that retention clause during your original contract review, because Wade figured I'd never actually use it. Well, he's definitely reconsidering that assumption now. They found all the email threads, your complete Miller project documentation, even the server logs showing you personally wrote everything Brady's been taking credit for in his presentations. I almost felt sorry for Wade. Almost. But then I remembered his fake smile, and that dismissive coffee cup gesture, and his line about promotions not defining real impact. How's Brady handling the operational pressure, I asked. Carl actually laughed out loud. He lasted exactly 1 client meeting. Miller's procurement director asked him about lean manufacturing implementation timelines, and Brady just stared at him like he'd been asked to explain advanced physics. That's rough. It gets much better. Brady tried to improvise his way through it, started throwing around buzzwords about agile deployment methodologies and synergistic process optimization. The client actually stopped him mid-sentence and asked specifically when you'd be returning to the project. That made complete sense. I'd spent 18 months building those professional relationships, explaining complex technical details, being available for emergency calls when their production systems had problems. Brady had assumed he could just slide into my role and coast on the foundation I'd built. Where does everything stand right now? I asked. Legal department confirmed your contract clause is completely valid and enforceable. HR is processing the full compensation calculation, and Brady submitted his resignation this morning. Brady quit too. Yep, apparently discovered that looking impressive in PowerPoint presentations isn't quite the same as actually managing industrial operations. Tuesday morning brought the official corporate response. Professional email from the legal department, copied to HR and Wade. We formally acknowledge the validity of your separation claim under Section 7C of your retention agreement. Full compensation package has been confirmed and payment processing has been initiated. Clean, professional, the corporate equivalent of unconditional surrender. My phone rang an hour later. Wade's personal cell number. Roger, listen carefully. He started with that desperate edge still in his voice. Maybe we can work out some kind of arrangement here. The board is seriously reconsidering the entire organizational structure. There might actually be room for multiple people in senior operational roles. Brady already resigned, I said. Long silence, then what happened? This morning, guess regional director was more challenging than his MBA program prepared him for. More silence while Wade processed the implications. Losing both Brady and me in the same week left him with nobody who actually understood the Miller contract requirements or operational protocols. Look, the Miller client is specifically asking for you to return, he said. They want operational continuity on their expansion phase. We could bring you back as an independent consultant, flexible hourly rate, your own schedule. Not interested, but thanks. Roger, be realistic here. You understand this business better than anyone else. These systems, these client relationships, we genuinely need your expertise. You needed my expertise 6 months ago. Now you need to figure things out without me. I hung up because Wade was right about one important thing. I did understand the business extremely well. Well enough to know that Steve Adams from Miller Construction had already called me directly with a much better offer. Roger, Steve had said that same morning, heard through the industry grapevine that you're making some career transitions. Any interest in joining our internal operations team? Strategic oversight position, quarterly consulting input, excellent compensation package. I'm definitely listening. We're expanding our internal operational capabilities significantly. Really need someone who understands both sides of the equation, manufacturing operations and client requirement development. Your background makes you absolutely perfect for this role. So by Thursday, I had a new business card and access to Miller's internal systems. Same type of work, but now from the client side of the relationship. This time, instead of trying to meet requirements, I was helping establish what those requirements should be. The financial irony wasn't lost on me at all. The full payout came through the following week. $360,000 total, exactly as calculated. Accelerated bonus structure, promoted salary equivalent, extended benefits coverage, early retirement bridge connecting to my Army pension. Enough to cover Jason's complete state university tuition without any financial stress. Enough to handle Helen's job security concerns if the school district made more budget cuts. Enough for my dad's increasing assisted living costs. Most importantly, enough for me to choose my next career moves based on what I wanted to accomplish, not what we desperately needed to survive. Friday evening, Jason burst through the front door waving his final state university acceptance letter. Engineering program, full academic admission. Dad, I need to make my final decision about tuition costs soon. Coach says the partial athletic scholarship is still possible, but already completely handled, I interrupted, pulling him into a hug. Focus entirely on your studies and football. The financial part is my responsibility, and it's solved. Helen squeezed my hand under the dinner table. The same supportive gesture she'd made dozens of times over the years, but this time it felt like pure celebration instead of worried determination. Saturday morning, I was back on our deck with my coffee, reading industry newsletters and watching the pond reflect the sunrise. Helen joined me with the weekend newspaper. Says here that Precision Manufacturing lost their Miller construction contract renewal. She mentioned casually, folding back the business section. Client apparently decided to transition to internal operational capabilities. I smiled and sipped my coffee. Imagine that coincidence. I bet Wade's having quite a difficult week, probably so. But that's what eventually happens when you treat people's careers and livelihoods like disposable chess pieces. The bills always come due. She set down the paper and studied my face carefully. Any regrets about walking away? I thought about that question seriously. 25 years of dedicated loyalty. All those late-night emergency repairs. All those crises I'd solved while other people collected the recognition and advancement opportunities. Then I thought about Jason's college education being completely funded, Helen's job worries eliminated, and my phone already ringing with multiple consulting offers from companies that actually valued experienced expertise. Not a single one, I said honestly. Sometimes the smartest move is simply recognizing when it's time to stop accepting less than you're worth. The morning was peaceful, with birds singing in our backyard trees. I'd kept every promise to my family, enforced a contract that Wade had carelessly signed, and positioned myself better than when this whole situation started. That's the thing about quiet professionals who do their jobs well and document everything properly. We don't need to make dramatic scenes to create meaningful impact. We just need to recognize the right moment to speak up and know exactly what to say when that moment arrives. In my case, those words were simple: I quit. Turned out that was the only conversation Wade and I really needed to have. In corporate America, loyalty is a one-way street until you make breaking it expensive. Always read every word before you sign, especially the clauses they assume you'll never use. The quiet professionals who keep their heads down and deliver results aren't pushovers waiting to be taken advantage of. We're just building our case, one document at a time, waiting for the right moment to remind everyone what real competence actually costs.